Hey, Chris. Man, I just don't know. I'm not so sure about today's show.
What? It's the retro gamers and us talking about obscure, scary movies. It's going to be great.
I know. I love Larry and Anthony, but scary movies? You know how easily frightened I am. And the movies, they give me nightmares. Man, I'm just not sure.
It's our Halloween episode. Just middle-aged man it up and get through it.
All right, I'll just push through. Listen, just do me a favor. I was raised to think these movies are, bad or evil, and can you just not tell my mom we did this?
Your mom's been dead for years, Dave.
Oh yeah. Huh? Wait, who's watching my kids then? Kids! Hey kids! Get away from that lady!
Darkness falls across the land, terrors rise and voices shout, opinions fall like grains of sand, as two middle-aged guys try to work it all out.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Two Middle-Aged Guys Trying to Work It All Out. Today is a special Halloween-themed episode, and we actually have four middle-aged guys with us today, and I want everyone to introduce themselves alphabetically because I want to see how long it's going to take them to figure that one out. Go.
Well, hello, this is Anthony from the Retro Gamers Podcast, who is offended being called the middle-aged guy.
How long do you plan to live, Anthony? Maybe that we could put you in the right strata if you could give us your projected lifetime.
Oh, I've already exceeded it, so I'm just like a really old guy at this point.
Right. Well, then you shouldn't be you should be excited. This should be like a compliment.
I go back and forth on it.
Okay. Well, I'm next, I think, because if I know my letters properly. I usually just sign things.
This is already falling apart.
I usually just sign things with a mark, just like I make my mark on it. But I'm Dave. I am a middle-aged man. Nice to meet you. This is like Middle-Aged Men's Anonymous that we're doing.
It is, and Dave, after the episode, we'll teach you the alphabet.
Because then Chris can go.
Oh, well, he did the introduction. Oh, yes, he did the introduction.
It was tricky, and I did not specify first name or last name, so it's chaos already. But anyway, I'm Chris.
You set me up.
I didn't set you up. It was a IQ quiz.
No, you didn't. I'm just dumb. I think it's
Anyway, I'm Chris. A voice that listeners will recognize. I'm here, grateful to be here, even though I should have come before Dave in the rotation, but that's okay.
And bat and cleanup, as usual, Larry here from the Retro Gamers Podcast. Always picked last, but always ready for fun. And today's going to be a fun show, especially because when I went back and did my research, I was like, whoa, all right.
Larry, you just hit a grand slam. You batted cleanup. You brought us all in.
Nice.
I mean, even me, embarrassed as I am in the clubhouse for not knowing my letters.
That's okay. I think that's all part of the fun, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah, not knowing. I've got to go back and...
Dave was ejected from the game and then tried to sneak back in, with the Groucho Marx, glasses and everything. So
I dressed up like the Philly fanatic, and ran on the field. Or Green Man for you. Oh, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia fans. I came out as Green Man. Okay. Well, hey, today, special episode, right? Halloween, spooky themed. Everybody knows that's my least favorite thing in the world. Before we get started, we have the Retro Gamers with us, Anthony and Larry, great friends of the show. I want to ask you guys a question. This is retro-related, and it's also kind of sort of in your neighborhood. But did you guys hear that the last large, full-service, real Kmart closed in Bridgehampton, which I guess is in Long Island, which kind of sort of in your neighborhood.
That's out by me.
Yeah, I didn't hear that because I actually thought all of the Kmarts were already closed.
Me too.
Many people did, right? But that's it. Yeah. There is no full size one. There's a tiny one I think in Miami left. It's like a Kmart mini, like an oversized convenience store. But the era of Kmart is truly over.
Wow.
Bummer.
Did you guys Retro Gamers, did you guys have any gaming memories from Kmart? Did you buy anything there?
Kmart did we even have a Kmart by us in Brooklyn?
We did not have a Kmart by us. I'll be honest with you. The first time I think I ever bought a game from Kmart, I was already living in Los Angeles.
I can't even remember. I remember shopping at Kmart, but I honestly can't remember. I remember KB Toys. That's the only K I can remember. But Kmart, no. And yeah, Bridgehampton's out here on Long Island.
Larry, you got to go clean. You got to go clean up.
I think it's too late now. Yeah, they might already be closed, but they're out east, so they're a bit further out.
Doesn't mean you can't get in the building.
Yeah, so Chris and I had Kmart's, right? We had like 3 or 4. I mean, at one time, and our last one closed like 5 years ago. One gaming memory I did not buy, but it was like 2009, and I was looking in Kmart Electronics, and they had Sega Saturn's Burning Rangers there.
Wow!
Still like one Sega Saturn game in 2009, $39.95, and I was like, I wonder if that's maybe. I mean, I think at the time it probably was going for. I don't know. I don't know how much it was going for, but 2009 Kmart still had it. Didn't have the sense to, get rid of their old stock.
I would have bought it.
I'm shocked the SKU still worked.
Well, it was Kmart, so
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
That is true. They're still using the wand, like the old wand scanner. Yeah.
So I had a big purchase at Kmart, and I don't know why this happened or why I remember it, but Kmart is where I found Super Mario Brothers 2 back in the heyday, because it was sold out everywhere, and we just happened to be in a Kmart, and they just happened to have one. So that was a big Kmart experience for me.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
I wonder if the last Kmart was treated like they treat the last Blockbuster out there in Bend, Oregon.
I don't think so. I've looked at pictures at Reddit. It looks like it's being treated as badly as it has for the last 10 years.
It's being treated like a Kmart in Bridgehampton, New York.
Yes.
There's probably squatters in the back, the popcorn machine, they're making meth in it, and, that sort of thing.
Oh, man, now I feel like I have to take a trip down to see this.
Yeah. I do follow that on Reddit a little bit because I'm very curious about the death of American institutions. And
I was about to say, what do you follow on Reddit? Kmart or meth?
Kmart,
both.
Sears. I do not follow meth. That's in my neighborhood here in Missouri, so I don't really,
I forgot where I was, but just recently, the other day, I actually saw, and I don't know if they were getting ready to open it again, but I actually saw a Toys R Us.
Yes.
Macy's and Toys R Us have got that agreement. So Macy's, another failing company, they decided they would, compound their failures and try to make it more spectacular. But yeah, they're kind of sort of coming back. We have a Toys R Us inside of our Macy's, and I mean, it's fine. We bought toys there, but it's not, it doesn't touch like Target's toy selection. But it's something. Good Lord.
But I also heard that I thought there was there were going to be a handful of actual Toys R Us stores opening up in the U.S., and I think New Jersey was one of the places that was getting one.
There is a plan for that, yeah. I mean, there's, it could be, what a great revival. I just don't believe it.
Yep. I hit up one in Canada when I go there. There's one actually on my drive to Canada.
It takes about 7 years for them to catch up with the time, so their Toys R Us is probably going to close down shortly.
You know what? Which is okay with me, because, I'll pick up stuff there.
It's going like to a time
If I can buy a
machine.
video game by selecting a piece of paper from an envelope type thing, then that'll make me happy. Otherwise,
what I want. Yep.
Have you guys heard on, I don't know the last time I told it on the game, on the Retro Gamers,
no.
my epic story of Toys R Us when I was getting WrestleMania for the NES.
Yes, I know this story.
I love the story. Tell it again.
This is the short version. Went to pick up, this was like 1987, so I was about 7 years old. And they had like one slip left for WrestleMania for the NES. So my parents bought it for me. And in my Toys R Us, me and Anthony's Toys R Us in Brooklyn, you took the slip, and behind, past the registers, this wall of games, mostly NES, well, they're all NES, just was gorgeous. Sometimes I just stare at them. When like my parents were shopping for something, I would just stare at the games because they'd all line up. So I handed them the slip, and the kid's like, "Oh, sorry, we don't have this anymore." I'm like, "Oh, okay, so we'll have to wait till next time." And I'm staring. Then I'm like, "Wait a minute, what's that on the side?" That's a copy of WrestleMania. Bang, bang, bang. Hey, Mr. 16-year-old, work in the convenience store. There's the game. And kid goes, "Oh, thanks." Grabs it. So I'm like, I'm going to go home with the video game, and then goes and gives it to somebody else. At which point I had no other choice but to just bawl out, cry in the middle of the store. I mean, waterfalls shedding out of my eyes because I did not get the game that technically was purchased. And then the kicker of the story is a couple weeks later, my mom ended up getting that kid fired and ended up somehow getting the game at a deeply discounted price because her son was made to be look like a fool in Toys R Us.
So the moral of the story is don't cross Larry's mom. That's it.
She also got someone fired from a library one time because of me. Oh man, she is a war
library.
Oh yeah.
The other moral of the story is don't believe Larry when he says it's a short version. There are no short versions of stories with Larry.
It was succinct. Yes, succinct.
Well, the era of Kmart, popcorn slushies while you bought bad Route 66 Kmart branded clothes has come to an end. Very retro, very sad, very middle age. I thought I would bring it up. So.
Absolutely.
Farewell. We're all just going to have to go to Marshall's now.
Yes. What I love about Marshalls is you got like hundreds of racks of clothes. You got all these sizes, and somehow it goes from like 2X to like 6X. It's like, who is shopping here? Is Shaq coming in? I mean, there is a small but predictable. It's always there, a selection of like 5, 6, 7X. Clothes, and I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's always there. It's the only store you can count on it. So I don't know why I said that. I think I made.
That's okay. We just let you roll.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that, Chris. You can edit that out. Okay, that's why we don't do video. It makes it easier. All right, so today's theme is the scariest movie you've never seen. We're bringing obscure but scary movies out to our audience. We have the Retro Gamers coming on. This is gonna be great, Anthony. I'm prepared to be blown away. You're setting my playlist for tonight. But before we do that, just really quick, I thought I would mention, just like Kmart was really quick, I thought I would mention any Halloween memories that you guys might have, like from a kid, maybe a memorable costume.
I have a memorable costume. I remember for 2 years in a row, the only homemade costume I ever wore was a Popeye costume because I am a huge Popeye fan. The story supposedly that Popeye was my first word, so I ran with it. And my mom, for kindergarten and maybe first grade, I think I squeezed it out again in first grade, made me a Popeye costume. I had the I had the pipe. And
corn cob pipe.
Thank you. I had the pipe. I had the muscles that were, sewn into the shirt and everything. I had to keep my eye closed the whole time. It was very annoying. But I remember that costume I loved. And then I had one of like the store-bought. I don't know if I remember this one vividly. One of those store-bought Pee Wee Herman costumes that I wore one year. With the plastic face, and then the plastic getup that you just throw over your regular shirt. So I don't know why those two costumes stuck out with me tremendously. And a wonderful memory was the one year my dad, actually the fathers, brought the kids out trick-or-treating in my neighborhood. So we found out they came out with us because I guess they lined up drinks at every house that we went to. So as much as the kids got candy, we all got candy, my father and some of the other dads were sloshed by the time we got through the beach. We got through the neighborhood, and that was the last time that the fathers brought the kids out for trick-or-treating in my neighborhood.
That is an experience in Southwest Missouri in the Bible Belt you would probably never see, but interesting to know that it exists. Yeah, yep. That's hilarious. So the muscles, I was going to ask, they were sewn into the suit. Yeah, that's the most important part. You got to get that right.
Totally. I just remember, I had the hat, and I can't remember if it was the white outfit or his black outfit. I always liked his A-class uniform, Class A uniform, which was his black outfit. But it might have been just the traditional white one. But I love that costume. That was great.
You are a Popeye super fan.
Oh my God. I don't have much of Popeye around here, but the little that I do definitely means a lot to me. And he's always been like in the background for me, always been number one.
Anthony.
I only have one distinct Halloween memory. And the reason why I only have one, I think, is because I was one of those kids that kind of grew up and was too logical for a child, because I think the last time I went trick-or-treating was when I was 7 because after that I had decided that I didn't need to do all the work to get the candy, because one, I had a younger sister and an older sister who did it, so they would just bring the candy home and I'd eat it. And 2, my parents would buy Halloween candy, so I would just take from there. So
Yeah, why not?
I never really, never knew. So, but the one memory I do have is a great one, and I say that with sarcasm, because when I was in kindergarten, it was all about dress up for Halloween. So I had one of those Pac-Man Halloween costumes, like Larry said, with the Pee Wee Herman with the plastic face, and my kindergarten classroom was down a set of stairs. So I show up with my mom to go to class, and I wanted to walk in with the mask on. So I put the mask down before we walked down the stairs.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. I fell down the entire flight of stairs.
Please tell me you were like waka 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 waka.
Yeah. At least, was there like a banana at the bottom of the stairs you could consume, so it looked like, oh, this was on purpose?
No, there was just a wall. So I just went down the stairs right into the wall.
Wow, wow, wow.
And yep. And then my mom, being my mom, because this was the 80s, still left me to go to class.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So what? You cracked your head open. Go to class.
Concussions were not a big deal in the 80s. We were fine.
Yeah, and that might actually explain what's wrong with me.
Chris,
Yeah,
Halloween memories.
I was never big into Halloween as a kid. I was kind of in that same boat. Like, my parents would buy all this candy. Why do I need to waste my time going around? And even when my parents would dress me up and would be like, oh, let's go to your grandparents' house so they can see you, I was like, is this really what we have to do with our time? But, like any kid born in the era that we were born in, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were massive and meant everything to me. So certainly I remember dressing up as a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle with one of those cheap Walmart costumes that was like made out of vinyl, with the mask that just had the little slit for the mouth, which never made any sense at all, in any way, shape, or form. But I remember that costume. And I remember specifically seeking out Raphael, because even as like a 7, 8, 9-year-old, I was like the sarcastic turtle. That's the one for me. And so I held on to that early.
Why did everybody like Raphael? I never understood it. He had like the worst weapon.
And a bad attitude.
All the good ones end in no.
I'm with you. I'm a Donatello guy.
The attitude was the appeal.
I'm a Leonardo guy.
All right, hold on. Wait a minute. So I know we're drastically running out of time, but Anthony's Leonardo, Dave's Donatello. This works out. Chris is Raphael. Mine was Michelangelo. We are the Turtles. Look at this.
That's perfect.
It's done.
You know what? We're the Turtles once they hit middle age, because we're just all done with it.
We're done. Yeah, like whatever. Listen,
Turn it into
I showed up wearing a robe to record this. That's how done I am.
How splinter
It's 5
you
o'clock
are.
at night. It's 5 o'clock at night. I work at home. I am done. One very, very brief for me. My parents were pretty religiously strict. We did very little Halloween-wise. I dressed up once like a pregnant lady, which is bizarre that they would allow that. But I'm going to tie it together with Kmart with my kids. My daughter at 15 said, not doing Halloween this year, not doing Halloween this year, not doing Halloween. The day before Halloween, she said, I need a costume. So I drove around our entire city looking for a costume for her. They were all sold out. Finally landed at a Kmart. They had one costume, a can of Diet Coke, and I bought that for her, and she was a can of Diet Coke because she waited to the last minute and she got whatever Kmart had left. So
whatever works.
That was it. So yeah.
Why a pregnant nun of all things? Of all
I was
things,
a pregnant
how
lady.
Did you wind up as
not a pregnant nun.
lady. Sorry.
I truly don't know why, because they didn't do Halloween. And for some reason, there was a Halloween party, and I think it was themed to fall party at a relative's house. I showed up as a pregnant lady, and that was somehow okay, even though you know what? I don't know. I don't know.
Clearly, there's no spirit Halloween down where you guys were.
There wasn't then. There are a few now. My kid, we totally take our kids to Halloween stuff and do things. One time, my son was Tony Stark when he was like 6 or 7, and we got really into. They did the facial hair with the Sharpie. I mean, he had it, and then we couldn't get it off. So for like days, he would go to school with this disappearing Tony Stark complicated facial hair. Very funny.
That's awesome.
So yeah,
That's awesome.
all right, Halloween members. Let's get into the meat of this. What are some scary? Everyone's going to bring a scary movie that is obscure. Try to tell our audience, give our audience something new to watch and to be afraid of. So I believe, Larry, we're starting with you or Chris? Which one? You guys.
Larry, go for it.
I set the order now. I can't remember.
All right, I'll go for it. That's all right. I'll do it. No problem.
Let's go alphabetically. Larry, you're up.
I'm learning my letters. Hang on. I gotta note that down. L is the first letter. Thank you.
I gotta find my collection of letter people that I had in kindergarten. So first of all, to show the dedication I have and my love for you guys, because our shows, even ourselves, we're all considered friends here. For preparation of this episode, for the second time in like, I don't know, 8 years or so, I actually bought I think they call it a DVD, I believe it's called.
Wow.
Not sure. I had to dust it off a little bit, but I actually, because it's not available on streaming, not available on digital.
Oh boy.
Only available on DVD, and it is a opus magnus out of Australia called Visitors. Now, this movie, which stars Radha Mitchell or Michelle, Radha Mitchell. I know her as the lead from the Silent Hill movies, if you remember those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what else she was in. And then Ray Barrett, who I believe was in Prison Break. Oh, no, excuse me. Dominic Purcell is the guy from Prison Break. I apologize.
Yes.
And he's in it as well. And basically, it's about a woman who sets to do a solo sail around the world. But what happens is while she's out in the open water by herself, she starts kind of hallucinating, for lack of a better term, almost like cabin fever. And then out of nowhere, you start to get like these beings, these different, you don't know if they're real, if they're imaginary, coming in onto the boat to interact with her and everything. Now, when I first saw this, I remember I watched it on cable. I actually just caught it on like HBO or something. And I'm not into horror, and I will leave this short. But when I was growing up with Anthony's definitely the horror guy. In fact, I was the only non-horror guy in our group of friends growing up. I was forced to watch Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street and any of the other wacky movies that they were able to find.
Well, you needed a proper education.
Yeah, so this has never been my genre. It's not even a scare thing. It's just it wasn't my genre. But I kind of fell in love with Visitors because I thought it was creepy enough, but more psychological creepy. Then when I got the DVD and I started watching it again, I went to myself, I think I picked the wrong movie. because I don't know if it's because I'm older now, but it didn't hit me like it did a few years ago when I first watched it. But if you take it from the psychological point of, again, this woman by herself, actually it's her and a cat. That's all she has is a cat who starts talking to her. And she just starts interacting with the cat. So to watch her kind of devolve into this madness of sorts in the open waters might not be a traditional scare horror, but for me, it hits me different for that like psychological horror that can get you. And you know, like I said, I had to import it from Australia. This is how bad the movie is. There's only 2 trivia facts on IMDb for the movie. Basically,
that's a good metric.
Yeah,
that is a metric. Like how much people pay attention to a film.
The 2 are final film of director Richard Franklin, and the other is this film is considered an Ozploitation picture, an Australian exploitation movie, because it's out of Australia. So I know no one has seen this movie, Visitors, or even heard about it. But if you want to watch this psychological horror, not as much physical, though there is a little bit of gore in it. But for a psychological horror that no one's heard of, I definitely give this one a whirl. If you find yourself in like Perth, Australia or somewhere.
At a flea market.
Good luck. Not even in a flea market. I don't even remember where I bought this online. I might have eBayed it, to be honest with you.
Oh, well, Larry, I'll tell you this much. When you're ready to get rid of it, because you do that with all of your DVDs, just send it my way.
I do, but I don't think I can because it's not available anywhere else. It's not on digital. So
you'll find it.
Here I am stuck with this stupid physical copy. This in the room. For those listening and wondering, the room was the other physical media that I had to buy in physical media.
I have a copy of The Room myself. In fact, I have a autographed, the viewers, the listeners will see it. I have an autographed picture of Tommy Wiseau here in my office.
And I think, David, Chris, I think you might know why I have The Room, because you got to have The Room if you're going to listen to the riff tracks for it.
That's right.
That's right. But yeah, so mine's going to be short and sweet, but this movie, Visitors, good luck finding it. And again, more of a psychological, but it's definitely weird at points. And also, I hate being on the water. my dad did a lot of sailing. He was on what's called USS Kane. He was in the Merchant Marine. He literally was behind the wheel, steering through the Straits of Gibraltar. So he's done a lot of stuff on the open water. I am petrified of the open water. So even putting myself in that, where like by yourself on a sailboat sailing around the world, nope, I'm out. So that gets me as well.
Okay, that is super obscure. It sounds scary. That is that's a winner, I think, Larry. Thank you.
Yeah,
Did you have like others like others that you thought about that you were going to bring up? Like an almost ran?
Not the obscure one I'm thinking of. Ant might have picked, so I'll save it for when he reveals his, because Ant showed, Ant, I think you might know the weird one that we watched back in the day from a famous director. That was just so awkward and wacky.
Oh yeah, but I wouldn't pick that
wasn't
one
yours?
because it's not obscure.
I would have thought that was obscure.
Lay it out, Larry.
Dead Alive?
I want to hear it. Oh yeah, Dead Alive.
That's not obscure at all.
Okay, I thought it was obscure. So
no, it's not obscure. It's just
it was obscure before Lord of the Rings.
That's true. Yeah,
So.
Peter Jackson. They said, "Hey, look what this dude did before Lord of the Rings." Then people watch. They go, "Oh my gosh, how did he get hired?"
And then I was
Exactly.
And then I was thinking of like one of the last Puppet Master movies. That's really the only series I truly enjoyed was the Puppet Masters.
I love those movies.
Like retro Puppet Master.
Yeah,
starring Mark from The Room.
Yes, he was in that. Right, I forgot about that.
He was.
And then it was like either part 3 or part 4 where they got super lazy and just all the kill scenes were just file footage from the first 2 movies.
Yep.
And it's not like they were flashbacks. It was supposed to be kills like in the 3rd movie, but they just used old footage from the first 2.
Yeah, that was. I think that was like the 5th,
Something like that before they got to
Yeah.
Axis
Oh,
of
man.
Puppet Master.
Remember, that's the kind
Axis
of
of
movie
Evil.
you could watch on like USA on a Saturday. You know, when the
100%.
USA used to do that.
Yep.
Those horror
Elvira.
movies. Yeah.
Anything from Full Moon Pictures.
Yep.
Was
Yeah.
on USA Network.
Oh, good stuff, Larry. Chris, what have you got?
Yeah, I'm starting to worry that maybe mine is not obscure enough. So I'll throw this out here and we'll see what you guys think. Because Larry's pick was amazing. I've never heard of that movie. I'm now going to have to chase it down, get my Australian contacts on the line, see what I can wrangle around. But anyway, my film is also a very psychological based one. It does have a little bit of the kind of the physical horror as well, but it's more of an in your brain kind of movie. And my pick is John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness. Anyone besides Dave on this call seen this movie? Okay, Anthony's seen it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's terrifying.
I love this movie.
I can't watch it as an adult. That's
give it
how
another
scary
shot. It's a great film. It's very well made. It's like an eldritch horror movie. Like the H.P. Lovecraft was a lot of the inspiration behind it. You know, obviously Lovecraft's most famous story was at the Mountain of Madness, and this is in the Mouth of Madness. So they are wearing their inspiration on their sleeve, and it's all about this guy who is either slowly going crazy in this world, or he's the only one in the world who's not going crazy. And there's, you can watch it both ways and kind of come up with your own answer as to what's going on. But it's a fantastic film. Sam Neill stars as the main character. Jürgen Prochnow, who we know from Dune, the original 1984 Dune, among some other things, was in the film. And Charlton Heston even appears in the movie in a very limited role.
It is a super well-crafted film. I mean, John Carpenter was on fire at that time, and I think this is his best piece of work, better than, I love Halloween, I'm not going to diss it or anything. This is a well-put-together horror film that never got the surfaced or credit that it deserves. I mean, Jürgen Prochnow, or however you say his name, I've never been able to pronounce his name, but, his part in the film is absolutely terrifying, and it depends on what side you land, because the film, like you said, presents both sides, right? He's nuts or he's sane, and the world is nuts. If he is sane and the world is nuts, it is one of the most terrifying visions of the end of the world. I can't watch it.
I think the problem with the film in terms of why it didn't do very well is it released in February.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you would have thrown that in October, probably would have done a lot better.
They didn't have confidence in it. That's what
they
it
did
shows,
not.
right? Yeah. That's the graveyard.
January, February is the graveyard.
I love that movie though, Chris.
Oh, it's a great movie, and it's such an interest. And you've got, not only the psychological crazy aspect going, but you've got the Lovecraftian monsters, like the indescribable horrors and the creatures with tentacles and stuff like that. And there's actually one really famous practical effect in the movie where there is this literal wall of monsters that's coming at Sam Neill, and they spent, gosh, who knows how much money and how much time on this wall of monsters, and it appears in the film for like 12 seconds. But it's that thing where Carpenter was like, if you see it for too long, it's not scary anymore. So it's got to have that hit and out kind of appeal to it. But it's a great film, very intellectual film. If you like Larry's pick, it's only got like 3 or 4 entries in the IMDb trivia section as well. But one of the things that it talks about is a lot of the reviewers who liked the movie always say, oh, it's a thinking man's horror movie, and you get that kind of a response from it. But it's at a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, if that means anything to anybody, which is criminally underrated. The movie's fantastic. I highly recommend it. My youngest child is super into horror, which is unlike any other member of our family. So I was like, okay, fine. You want horror? We're going to sit down and we're going to watch this movie. And we watched In the Mouth of Madness. No, but at the end of it,
did you make them smoke a pack of cigarettes afterwards?
No,
too,
but at the end of it, they look
awful.
up at me and they're like, wasn't scary.
Kids.
Kids today.
Currently available on your movies. Currently available on Apple TV for $5.
There you go. So Shout
And
Factory,
I'm purchasing it as we
Shout
speak.
Factory did a collectible Blu-ray of it a little while ago that I think is still around that you can get a hold of. But a great movie. I stand by this movie, even if you're not like Halloween, even not into a horror kind of vibe. This is just a solid movie. So I really am a big fan of In the Mouth of Madness. I'll go ahead and throw out my also ran, which is an obscure one, and it scared me so bad as a kid that I did not revisit it for this podcast. I was just like, you know what, I'll mention the title and that's enough. And that is a film called The Serpent and the Rainbow. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Voodoo.
Yes,
Nice pull.
That movie is terrifying. And I find voodoo scary to begin with. So then when you put that in Wes Craven's hands with Bill Pullman in the starring role, that movie, I saw it once and I was like, this is going back to the rental store and we shall never speak of it until I'm doing a podcast in my middle ages.
Doesn't that movie have like what they call the twin movie effect with a similar one that came out at the same time, which was Angel Heart? Couldn't you put that in that twin movie?
Was Angel Heart the Robert De Niro picture?
Where he plays Louis Zephyr. Figure that one out, kids. My name is Louis Zephyr.
So I don't remember Angel Heart being that focused on voodoo, but maybe I'm wrong. It's been forever since I've seen
It
that.
had elements of it, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I stay away from those movies. They get into your head and control you, and
then you become a
I'm
zombie.
not gonna do that. Those are great.
Those are the most fun movies.
Hey, just real quick though, on In the Mouth of Madness, I always felt like that they kind of remade that in space. With the other Sam Neill movie,
Event Horizon.
Event Horizon.
Event
like,
Horizon.
They tried to kind of remake that sort of horror in space. It's not Event Horizon is nowhere near as good as In the Mouth of Madness, but there's some beats that kind of remind me of it, and it's in space, which is cool.
Yeah,
right?
I hadn't thought about that, but you're right.
Event Horizon's a fun one, though.
It is. It's not a P.T. Anderson movie. It's a Paul Anderson movie or whatever.
Man, I haven't seen any of these movies.
All right. So I'm gonna throw out mine. This movie's terrifying, but it's different because it presents a vision of what could happen. 1984, BBC made for television the film Threads. Have any of you guys heard of Threads?
Absolutely not. I like this. Okay.
All right, so 1984, think about it, Cold War, right? I mean, it's a pretty terrifying time. BBC made a movie that follows a group of just normal characters, a family, a boyfriend and a girlfriend. The girlfriend is expecting, they're looking for their first home. A mayor and his staff in a period of time where there's a huge world tension, not too different than now, right? If you guys follow the news. Huge world tension, Soviet Union, United States. About a third of the movie is setting up this tension. And the mayor starts preparing civil defense types things, civil response. and then World War III breaks out, and they do not explain like the mechanics. We don't have the Russian premier and the president of the United States, none of that, right? It is just following normal people going about their lives in a relatively small town of Sheffield in the UK. It's located to that. All of a sudden, bombs start going off. The town destroyed, the flames, the fire, the pressure. And then that's the first third of the movie is building that tension. The second third of the movie is the first 15 minutes, the first day, the first week after, how people survive the civil response, breaking down, being ineffective. And it shows it's got little interstitials that say, all right, a day after the bomb, population of UK, and it shows how things are going down, and and then it follows these characters and related characters for 15 years. And it shows the medieval way that they're living after total thermonuclear war, how education is affected, and that the lucky ones died immediately. It never says that. No one ever looks at the camera and says, the lucky ones died immediately. But you just figure that out because it's a well-crafted film. And it is it's got an end scene that shows sort of the... what it's like to have humanity reduced to this sort of medieval living with this new, with pathogens and radioactivity that is absolutely, you will stick in your mind forever. It is absolutely terrifying. You can find it threads on many different platforms, including Tubi, where it's free. This movie will terrify you, but not in that supernatural, spiritual sort of way. It's like, oh my gosh, if this, if they unleashed the arsenal, this is what it would look like. Interestingly, the United States made their own version of this like a year later called The Day After.
I swear, I was waiting for you to finish up because I'm like, this sounds like the BBC's version of our movie, The Day After. Yeah.
BBC did it first. The Day After did it. The Day After is very good, but the BBC one is raw and just is man, there's no hope there. The Day After kind of shows, all right, some smart people are building stuff, and it kind of gives you a little bit of hope. There's no hope with this. This is a desolate, desperate movie, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
I remember watching the closest I can get is The Day After. I remember they showed that to us in school.
Yeah, I didn't see it in school, but I could see that. Sure.
I remember watching it in school, but I'm talking maybe 5th grade or something. Yeah. And I'm sitting there going, what the heck am I watching? What is this? And I remember almost flipping out when I got home. I flipped out at Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Day After, I was dang near there as well.
Shows what kind of messed up school you went to.
Yeah, it was a Catholic school too.
You were still mourning the Challenger tragedy, and
I was just going to say,
good Lord.
I was going to say, I saw the Challenger live, like every other kid.
But yeah, no, that sounds wild. Again, I'm kind of checking it out as you guys talk. Threads is currently available on Fandango at home for like $10. But like you said, it's on Tubi, so I'm definitely going to check that out.
I think it's also on Prime.
Oh, is it? Okay. Chris, have you heard of this movie?
No.
Because this is the kind of thing you and I would have sought out at the video store. It must have
I guess
been
not,
there.
because it's not ringing a bell at all. And I looked it up on Wikipedia, and I'm not getting any reminders of it. So I think this one totally blew past me.
This would be a movie, personally, that I would have never looked for. I'm not a big post-apocalyptic kind of society person because... I don't know. I think my world's already messed up. I don't need to see other real worlds messed up like that. But no, this is one that I would have never thought to see.
If it helps any, and I'm not a fan of Rotten Tomatoes. I don't read the tomato meter, but I'll pay attention to the popcorn meter, as they call it. 2,500 plus reviews of Threads, 92% approval rating.
Wow.
Yeah. It's excellent. Very well crafted. Yeah. I mean, the BBC always, man, they produce good stuff. Even if you don't like it, if it's not your thing, there's craftsmanship there. So my also ran, it was very close to Chris's pick, was Prince of Darkness, which is another Carpenter movie. And I won't say too much about it, but Prince of Darkness has two things. Alice Cooper is in it, and he kills somebody with a bicycle frame, which is just crazy. He plays a homeless
Nice.
man. But it also has one of the most clever and scary endings of a film. Carpenter does a really neat, almost Nolan-like loop in the film, and I think it's very effective, scary movie. And it has Donald Pleasance, who's always
he's Pleasance.
Donald Pleasance. He's fun
Yep.
to watch. He's pleasant. Yeah, he's pleasant. He's a good man. That was my also ran. So I really man, Threads though. Woo, oh boy.
All right.
Anthony, teed up for you, man.
Wow, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can follow all you guys.
Honestly,
at this
if
point.
Anthony comes up with a
I've been watching
dud,
them.
we're just stopping this right now and not airing it.
Well, no, at this point, it was funny because I watched the movie that I was going to use, and then while I was getting ready for the show, I remembered a completely different movie that I think maybe would be the one to talk about more. But I was trying to run my brain through it. So you're going to get two
right.
from me, I guess.
All right.
So forget my also ran. You're just getting two and deal with it. The first one, for some odd reason, I'm a softie. I guess a softie when it comes to the found footage genre. There's something about the found footage genre that I find very fascinating because it feels more realistic and visceral to me than other films. So a lot of obscure horror movies that I've seen have been from that kind of genre. And there were a handful I wanted to use. The one that I chose originally is called, it's a Canadian film actually, called Grave Encounters. Has anybody heard of this movie?
No, I have not. No.
All right, so Grave Encounters was released in 2011. It's a found footage film about a group of ghost hunters. It's kind of a play almost on the reality show Ghost Adventures. So it's about this group of people, and they're shooting a ghost hunting reality show, and they go into an asylum. And they get locked into an asylum for a night. And the idea is, they're walking around doing the tropes that you would hear in a ghost hunting show that weren't really tropes yet because ghost hunting stuff was just blowing up at the time. So it was still a little bit new. All these things start happening as they're in this asylum. And, obviously because it's a found footage thing, they start freaking out and you're seeing things happening in the background and stuff is going on. And I don't want to give away parts of the film because one of the reasons why I like this film so much is there's a twist that happens in the middle that I absolutely loved. And to me, it kind of just amped up the story in a way that other found footage films like this did not do. And I also felt like almost every single actor in the film, there's one in particular I didn't care for, but I thought everybody else did a really, really great job selling this idea and selling what was going on in here. And I thought that the scares were simple enough and effective enough to really work. So it's one of those ones, like I said, with found footage, it's hard to find. I'll always love the Blair Witch, the one that started it
That
all.
really
to me,
did start it, yeah.
Yeah, to me, the Blair Witch was ridiculously effective, even without the whole marketing campaign they did, the campaign they did behind it online, which was absolutely brilliant.
That campaign was brilliant, though. I mean, they really, yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. And then the one that followed after that I thought, the only other one that I thought that was remotely successful with that was Paranormal Activity. Those two to me, I kind of hold up on the pedestal of I felt like they did it the best. This one to me, I thought took the idea, gave it a good spin, and made it feel new to me. And I just had a blast with it. Absolutely had a blast with it. I highly recommend it. And that was the one that I watched this morning. But then while I was thinking about other movies, this one popped in my head. And the reason why I wasn't going to talk about it at length is because I haven't seen it in a very long time. It may be hard to find, but it's a British found footage horror movie. It was released in 2003 and it was called The Last Horror Movie. Has anybody heard of this one?
No.
Look at this.
Okay.
Anthony's bringing it to the table.
So what's awesome about this movie is, again, it's kind of a found footage, but I almost feel like it's a found footage / mockumentary or documentary. And what it is it's about a man. He's a wedding video cameraman, but he's also a serial killer. And what he does is he breaks the fourth wall and he takes you through how he kills people. And, he sells himself as he's this regular video cameraman. He hires some assistant to follow him around who's filming all this stuff. And what's really cool about this film, and one that I always thought this is such a cool spin on the genre, is he's actually talking to you as the audience and he's making you question your own values because he does things in the film and then he looks at you he'll just break the fourth wall and be like, well, he's like, if you were truly revolted by this, why are you still watching? And he really starts to push you on your own like belief system and everything like that. And then at the very end, like there's kind of a, again, all of these kind of have a little bit of a twist, but like how he chooses his victims is actually a really cool, playful twist on what he does. And I don't want to give that away either. So don't read it if you want to watch it. The lead actor in it is Kevin Harworth, and the only reason why I bring him up is I was looking at his filmography. He's actually done a lot of video game voices.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so like he's done voices in The Witcher. He did let's see, The Raven, The Wolf Among Us, Risen 3, Titan Lords, Elden Ring. So wow. he's done other stuff, but to me, like the last horror movie, he did some voices in Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. I don't know what voices he did in there, but it's listed on his IMDb.
Probably something about man flesh. There was a lot of talk about man flesh in Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, it's all about the man flesh in those movies. But the last horror movie, that's my actual pick because to this day I can't think of another movie to compare it to.
Wow.
And if I can't do that,
Yeah.
That's got to be the one that I got to mention. And like I said, I think it's hard to find.
Is it kind of like the way they follow the people on The Office, except he's a serial killer and he's talking to the camera? I mean, you know what I mean? Is it kind of like almost framed like that?
He cuts someone's arm off and then very Jim fashion looks at the camera.
No, it's very... the one thing I will say about it is like... the assistant that he hires is always like, I think it's almost always like a homeless man because he needs to have somebody follow him that who won't tell on him. And the whole film is him talking to the camera mixed in with the torture and murder scenes. So it's like the Office, but majority of it is him talking.
It's more
it's all to the camera.
More Zach Morris and Saved by the Bell than anything else.
A little bit more, maybe. Yeah, Zach Morris, if Zach Morris was a serial killer.
Well,
but,
let's face it, he was a terrible human being. So
I have misunderstood Saved by the Bell for years. I thought he was a serial killer. So.
He should have been. That would have been a great twist at the end.
It would have.
When he was kissing Lisa and then Screech walked in on the two of them. Oh my God, what a heel!
Yep.
Evil.
Yep, absolutely. But there was one other thing I was going to say, but if you can find a copy of the last horror movie, and now that I've talked about it, I want to find a copy for myself.
It might be on Prime.
Is it on Prime?
You can buy it digitally on Amazon Prime for $5. Or
Perfect.
if you have Midnight Pulp, which is one of the streaming services, it's on there as well.
I've never heard of Midnight Pulp.
Yeah, it's a lot of Amazon has a couple like these horror streaming like Shudder,
Yep.
but even more
Shudder.
obscure movies.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
But it's on there. Yeah, $5.
All right, cool. Well, I would like to find a physical copy.
You know what's wrong with you?
For myself.
Okay, whatever.
Great obscure movies. You bring up something which is a film where the bad guy kind of makes you reconsider your own values and maybe you start to empathize with him. That's really effective, right? When it goes to that point, that's when it's a movie that does that to me a little bit. I don't know if you've heard of this. Is The Minus Man? With Owen Wilson. It was one of his very early. He plays a serial killer, and you begin to about halfway through the movie, you begin to think, wait, who is the protagonist and who is the antagonist, and that messes with your head. So The Minus Man kind of reminds me a little bit of that in terms of its effect, not its theme. So, and it's got Owen Wilson, right? It's always great.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
I'll throw one more at you. I didn't use it because I thought it might have been a little less obscure, but if you like those types of movies, if you haven't seen Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
Yep,
Leslie Vernon. Love that movie.
That is an effective film. And you know how I found that? In the early days of Netflix, when you first got your weird Roku box and you plugged it in, there was like 9 movies on it, and that was one of them. And that's how I watched it, because those are typically my kind of films. Very well done. It's funny, too, which is not usual for that, but it's actually funny. It's a guy who wants to be Jason, all those guys, right?
Wants to be a serial killer, and he hires a camera crew to follow him around.
Yep. Not a bad film.
And it was Zelda Rubinstein's last movie, Tangina from Poltergeist.
Oh, wow. And the thing is that I don't like horror movies. I'm scared of... I have never seen The Exorcist. I've never seen it because...
Oh, my gosh.
It's a gem. It approaches things that that I actually believe to be true, and so I don't want to like let that into my head. Like electricity from the screen might come into my head.
I was gonna say, like, all the more reason to watch it.
And,
No.
and were you there when? So just real quick to bring in on me and Ant's history. We met each other in high school, and we went to a Catholic high school. And were you there? It was one of the nights when they had like like the nights where we kind of stayed after school, and someone showed The Exorcist in the video lounge.
No, but
man,
I was not there for that one, but I was there for one of the nights where I brought in the movie for the video lounge.
Yeah.
And I brought in a VHS from my dad, and my dad would record like 3 movies from HBO because you would record on SLP, so you could fit 3 movies. So I brought in a VHS to watch. It was like a Nightmare on Elm Street 4 or something like that. But then there were 2 other movies on the tape. So I left the room after Nightmare on Elm Street. Some of the other students kept running the next movie. In the next movie, there's a woman who takes a shower, and they decided to keep rewinding it and replaying it over and over again. And Larry and I went to a seminary school.
We did.
One of the priests walked in.
Father Joe.
Yeah, I don't remember which one, but that did not end well.
No, and the nun walked in on The Exorcist, and she flipped out. This is what I heard. I was not in the room.
Like head spinning, flipped out?
Almost. And I wasn't in the room only because I didn't want to watch the movie. It's not like I was scared to get in trouble. I didn't want to watch the movie. But I heard, oh, boy. So, that poor school had
I hope it wasn't pea soup day in the cafeteria. That could have been really bad.
No, it
right?
wasn't. One of the few days that it wasn't. And do you remember? I don't mean to hijack the show. I apologize. I just wanted to ask because of the 4 of us.
Too late.
Yeah, Ant worked in a video rental store. So, do you remember any like obscure horror movies that people would even rent? I know I'm springing this on you.
No, you know what? Like I remember like I used to watch a lot of them when I would sit at the store because I'd be bored all day. So when I wasn't playing my PlayStation, I would basically just watch horror movies and laugh. But a couple of the ones that popped in my head was a really terrible movie that was really it was a commentary on society. It was called The Stuff.
Oh, I remember. Is that about?
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Remember The Stuff? It was about like a yogurt that you would buy in the store.
Absolutely.
And I'll always remember the tagline for the movie because it says, "Are you eating it or is it eating you?" And it was just this whole thing about just commercialism. That's really what it was about. But it was not a good horror.
Meanwhile, here I am going, look at this terrible takeoff of the Blob.
Right, the Blob. No, not the Blob, but like I remember that. I remember Critters.
Oh, Critters
was a popular one.
Yeah.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Yes.
Including the sequel with George Clooney.
Yes, I just bought that.
Yep.
I've never finished that movie.
Return of the Killer Tomatoes?
Either of them. I've started them, and I'm like, I just don't get it. And
they're terrible. They're just
Ghoulies.
terrible.
Ant mentions Ghoulies. My dad watched, didn't make me, but I was watching Ghoulies, and he let me sit with him and watch Ghoulies. And if you know, the cover of the video is them coming out of the toilet.
Yep.
I did not use the facilities for like 3 weeks after watching this movie. That's a legit.
Awesome.
I'm being real. My father almost brought me to the doctor. I don't know why my dad showed
But
me
I remember all of the cover art.
Yes.
On the shelf.
That was the best.
Yeah. The cover art was always the best.
Oh yeah, they could sell an awful movie with a great, terrifying cover. Chris, anything? I mean, when you and I would do this at the video store, any memories of? Anything we saw at the video store, anything we skipped, like I just can't. I mean, The Exorcist for me is like, I can't go there.
The Exorcist I have seen, and I find it to be absolutely terrifying. I will not watch it again. One was enough for me. But I remember,
make your kids watch it.
They'll be like, whatever.
Force them. Tie them down.
Anyway,
well, you said you wanted to scar them, and it didn't work with the other movie.
Get the Clockwork Orange eye-opening thing. And,
but I remember when we dipped our toe into horror movies, and of course we went through, 16 Friday the 13th movies, or however many of those there are.
Oh yeah,
we went through all of those. We went through the Nightmare on Elm Street. We went through the Child's Play movies. We've been through all of it, and kind of what I came out on the other end learning is I'm not a big fan of horror movies. Which is probably strange to the people who listen to us because I'm a massive Stephen King fan. But for some reason, when you put it on screen, I lose a lot of interest in it, which is why the ones I like are few and far between, and I really hold them in high esteem, like my pick in The Mouth of Madness. I think it's just a brilliant film. So that...
Yeah. John Carpenter, man, it takes a masterful director to make a great horror movie, but you can also get accidentally good ones, from sort of the incompetence.
Dave, though, to your point, like, I'm curious, like, is there one, like, because you said you'll never watch The Exorcist, like, to Chris and Larry, is there one that you know of specifically that you would never, ever try to watch?
I don't know, because you made me watch pretty much all of them growing up. So I've seen all the ones I did not want to see, including that what was that, Halloween 5 director's cut that like someone found on VHS. I'm like, okay,
that was great. That was
when
great.
Loomis walks away and was supposed to be the new Michael Myers.
Yeah, that was the original theatrical cut that they had to change.
But yeah, I don't know if there's any that it's like,
here, I'll throw one. Okay. I'll throw one at you. I don't think you'll ever want to see. Would you ever watch The Human Centipede?
I own The Human Centipede.
I've seen it.
I don't think
Dieter
that's
Laser.
That shocks me.
Listen, the guy's name is Dieter Laser. That's the bad guy's name. I'm going to watch a movie with a guy named Dieter Laser. And then even if it goes wrong, I'm just it did go wrong.
It was.
Did you watch the sequels?
No,
I did not watch the sequels. No, thank you.
I do want to see the sequels because the sequels are more. Look, the first one is a cakewalk compared to the sequels, from what I heard.
Yeah, I saw the second one.
Yeah, the third one is like 500 people involved. But and I remember, I went to an autograph signing in the city one time. And I remember they had the stars. They had the two actresses, really just mostly the two actresses. There signing autographs.
Did you recognize one of them? Because I wouldn't imagine that.
I should have from other movies, but no. And I didn't know what it was at first. I'm like, what is this Human Centipede? That's interesting. Then I read it. I'm like, this is phenomenal. And it's really not as. It's more gross as opposed to scary. The first one?
That was the last movie to make me nauseous.
No, it was.
It's gross.
Because the tagline of the first Human Centipede is, "This is medically accurate." And they did. They made it medically accurate. Whereas the second movie literally goes, "This is not medically accurate." And then they just go off.
I want to find out who did the, they consulted with that so I don't go to that gastroenterologist because I'm pretty sure that that's not the way to do it.
I think you're safe. It's he's in another country.
What we got out of the Human Centipede was one of the best episodes of South Park, the Human Centipede, which is one of the best television episodes of all time.
That was fantastic. So, well, you signed the user agreement. What?
No.
What does it say?
Sorry, cuttlefish it is. Oh my gosh. No, I don't know. I mean, nowadays, can we be at this point? I guess A, we're older. B, I guess when we were younger, there was always, and real young, there was, except for Anthony, apparently, there was that hint of, oh, this could really happen. Like these monsters can come out from under the bed and, drag me to hell. But like nowadays, is there anything that can, like, is it gory horror that gets you now, or is it the psychological that will get you?
Psychological, no question.
Thermonuclear war does still concern
like
me.
Saw, the first Saw, when we saw the first Saw, and Ann, I think me and you saw it in the theater, actually.
We saw
Saw when we saw it in the theater, and then I remember seeing Saw. But with Saw now, I'm going to stop. I took that as more, even though it was gory, but to me that's more a psychological than anything else, and that got me, more. I'll say emotional, for lack of a better term. I wasn't crying because I'm like, what's going on with Robin Hood? But it like, as opposed to the remake. Oh, thank you. Of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the amazing one when they rebooted it with Jessica Biel, the one in like 2003 or something.
Yeah, and it rained on her the entire movie.
Hey, listen, this is a PG podcast, so but I love that movie. But like, I enjoyed that one, and even though it was gory, it actually felt to me like a movie, like it almost arts. Well, not artsy, but in my head, trust me, this head art is very simple. But I think nowadays for all of us, because if you see our picks. Most of them were more leaning towards maybe psychological, as opposed to Anthony's, which was an all out gore fest.
I did not. Wait a minute. I did not choose All Out Gore. Grave Encounters is not a gory film.
You bring up Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake. See, I've seen both. I find that first one absolutely terrifying because of the grittiness of it, and especially that end scene when they're running down the road and she's jumping in the truck, and he's whatever the guy's in Gunter or whatever the actor is waving around. Yeah, he's Leatherface.
That guy.
But he smacks himself in the arm for real with the chainsaw, which is near and dear to my heart. He did. He got a bad injury.
I'm sorry,
but that is terrifying because it's so real. It's almost like a documentary, that the way they did that made that movie far scarier than it had any right to be.
Based on a true story, according to John Larroquette's voiceover.
I was just going to say, does anyone know who the voiceover was? Yeah,
John Larroquette, very effective voiceover, although it's not based on that story at all. It's totally different, but if you look into it. But
I think the answer to your question from my perspective is the stuff that scares me now and the stuff I don't want anything to do with is the stuff that's possible. Like the fantastical horror things, like that doesn't worry me at all. Like I'm fine with that. But it's the stuff like Dave's pick Threads, where it's like, oh, the world could be destroyed because a couple of people are arguing with each other. Or the stuff like Human Centipede, the first one, which is medically accurate. Or the stuff like Hostel, which, that could happen.
Hostel.
That's where I draw a line because I'm just not comfortable with that kind of thing.
You're gonna love the last horror movie.
Oh, okay. Well,
sure, whatever.
I'll get right on that. I'll let you know.
Yeah,
please do. I want a full review.
Well, guys, this has been a great conversation. Before we exit, Retro Gamers, tell them where they can find your excellent podcast.
Well, you guys can find us at facebook.com/RetroGamersPodcast, on Instagram at RetroGamersPodcast, on Twitter at RetroGamersPod. You can listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can watch us on YouTube and Spotify at RetroGamersPodcast, or you can email us at email@theretrogamers.com.
And for Two Middle-Aged Guys, just take everything Anthony said and put Two Middle-Aged Guys in it, and it basically kind of works because we're all in the same place. Go see us at twomiddleagedguys.com. That's a numeral 2, middleagedguys.com. We're on Facebook. Just search for Two Middle-Aged Guys, and X or Twitter or whatever they're calling it before it gets closed down.
X.
We're everywhere. Check us out, YouTube. All the same places. We really appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with us, helping us do a special Halloween episode, because we thought it would be a lot more fun with you guys, because Chris and I would just sit and talk about all the things we're too scared to watch.
Well, we're really happy to be on the show again, as always. It's always a pleasure chatting with you guys.
This is
a lot of fun.
So much fun, and again, we love you guys. Your show is doing tremendous, and I love hearing it. And again, you guys turned me on to Twin Peaks. You guys, just today, I'm going to be checking out a couple of these movies here that you were talking about. So In the Mouth of Madness, I actually have now in my shopping cart. So I'll be picking that up. But yeah, no, it's always so much fun to be on the show with you guys.
Larry will never watch anything I recommend.
Not at all, because he already made me watch them, and I'm already living through those scars.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you all in the next episode.